Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Just making sure everything's working properly here, and we'll be getting started shortly. Had to turn off some speakers there so I don't get the weird reverb going. All right, so on your page here, you're seeing our dash login page, which is just dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also navigate there from the VirtualPBX website. If you mouse over support at virtualpbx.com, you'll see one of the selections there is the dash login page, which will take you here. Now on the login page, you'll need your username, which is your email address, a password, which was hopefully emailed to you, and then your account name, which is typically your company name. Now, if you've forgotten your password or your admin didn't actually get the credentials sent to you, if you click on Forgot Your Info, and actually helps if there we go, click on it properly. So we would still need your username, but then we need either the account name or a phone number on the account, one or the other. We don't need both. And then you click on Reset Password. This will send you an email with a link to then get you logged in to change your password. Once you change your password that way, the system will log you back out and make you log back in with your new password. And then for most people, also just click on the Remember Me. So there's one less password you have to memorize. And then we'll go ahead and get logged in. Now, I'm showing you here on a long existing test account. If it's your first time logging in, then what you'll actually be sent to is a page that looks like this. This will be your user information. You can change your email address, your password here, your time zone, etc. That first time logging in, the dash wizard will pop up to tell you what these things are. I am an admin on this account, so I also have the admin settings here. And the main thing that has changed is right here, the company time zone, right? So by default, it puts you in LA, but if you're on the East Coast of the United States or what have you, you can change it. Now, this is, as I said, a test account. On a live account over here under where it says user, you'll have a separate section for your billing information. So that's where you would update your credit card information, you could update your billing contact information. You could see your service plan and your invoices. Now, once you're done in here, up here towards the top right, you click on Close, and that'll take you back to the dashboard page. On the dashboard page, again, that wizard will pop up to let you know what major sections are. But we'll go ahead and go over it here. Up here again, you can always click on your name to get back to that account page if you should need to. Next up, we have the D&D toggle, right? Do not disturb. Right now, it's off. If I click on it, it'll turn a little white there. And that lets you know, hey, now I am on Do Not Disturb, meaning calls to me aren't getting through, right? So if someone enters my extension number, it's going right to voicemail. If I happen to be logged into an ACD queue, I'm not being offered calls from that queue, right? So you would want to toggle that back to make sure you can get your call. Over here, we've got the little help icon. You've got the chat with us. This will open up the chat window so you can speak to a support agent and they can walk you through a particular feature that you're looking at. You've got the online store. This will take you to store.virtualpbx.com, and you can order hardware like a VoIP phone or a router, as well as the desktop version of our soft phone application. Over here, you've got Learn More. This will take you to the support pages, so then you can look at written guides for the various features with screenshots. And some of the guides also have videos associated with them. And then you can, at least not here, but on your accounts, you can also, if you set up a web phone on your user, you'll have a web phone link in the fourth slot here. That will take you to webphone.virtualpbx.net, and that allows you to use Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls. Over here, we got the 3 horizontal line icon or the hamburger icon. This is get you to other features on Dash. Most of these are admin-related features, and some, like ACD keys, for example, have additional fees associated with them, and I'll make sure to mention that as we go through them. And then here's the icon to log out. Over here on the left, these are the major sections of Dash itself. And the auto attendance one here, this one is only available on select plans, but we'll go over how to set that up if you are so inclined. All right, here in the middle, we've got total users, 17. How many I have? That means I have 17 staff members, probably including myself, to make and receive calls. Now, depending on your plan, adding users can increase your bill, so that's something to be aware of. Next up, we've got total devices, followed by a breakdown. So first up, we got cell phone, pretty self-explanatory. Next up, we've got the web phone, which I just mentioned. And then we have soft phone. Now, this can be both the VirtualPBX soft phone application, or it could be a third-party application. And in some cases, it could be also referred to a physical phone that you had to program manually. Right. Then we've got SIP phone. This is a physical VoIP phone, right? It sits on someone's desk, or there's a box that your handsets connect to. There are other types of VoIP phones on the market, right? So VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. SIP is the Session Interactive Protocol, I believe. I might have that wrong. But that, again, is a subtype of VoIP phone. So if you're out there shopping for VoIP phones that you want to use with us, you want to make sure it's SIP compliant or SIP compatible. And we'll get into specific model or manufacturers that work best with us. Probably the best way of saying that. Unregistered devices, I have 9. So this is telling me, right, that the system says, hey, 9 of your VoIP devices aren't connected, meaning we can't send calls to or from that device. That could be anything from they're simply not plugged in or powered on, to someone's having a network problem, or they may have no internet access at all. Next up, we got total numbers or total phone numbers on the account. So I have 36. These are phone numbers your customers dial to get to your account, right? So they can be your main number. They can be going directly to your salesperson, Bob, right? They can be going to your billing team. They can be going to your marketing team, what have you. Now, plans on Dash include anywhere from 1 to 15 phone numbers as part of the plan price, right? So you have a monthly fee, and part of that fee covers your phone numbers. Now, in this case, I'm well over 15, so I'm paying extra for these phone numbers, right? So if we say I had a plan that includes 15 phone numbers, then I am paying extra for, 21 extra phone numbers. That's going to be anywhere from $1.99 per month per phone number up to $4.99 per month per phone number. Again, that depends on the plan that you're on. Then we've got the breakdown, right? We've got assigned numbers and spare numbers. An assigned number means you're using it. It rings to someone, right? You can call that number and you can expect to either speak to somebody or get to a voicemail box or sending a fax, right? A spare number is a number on your account you're not currently using. So yes, it still counts as part of your allotment, or if you go over your allotment, then you would be being charged for numbers you're not using. And that could be because you're saving a number for an upcoming advertising campaign, right? Or you just had a campaign end over the holiday season, and you're not sure what you want to do with that number yet, but you don't want calls on it because it's just a bunch of wasted time at this point. Could be because you got a bunch of 10 numbers in sequence, right? Got a block of 10 that go in order, and you just haven't gotten to the last couple ones yet. This other breakdown here is between USDID and US toll-free, right? US toll-free is actually US and Canada toll-free, 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833. USDID, that just means a US local number. So you can have a number in, say, in Las Vegas, Nevada, or in Rochester, New York, say, Raleigh, North Carolina, anywhere in between. Now, you can have international phone numbers on your account. If you're interested in an international phone number, you're going to want to email our porting team, which is porting at virtualpbx.com. They'll need to know the city and country that you're interested in. At that point, they'll let you know if there's any additional requirements. Like Germany, for instance, requires proof of presence within that city. That usually means like a utility bill. Right? Other countries don't care. And in some cases, for like some of the, say you wanted a number in Toronto, Canada, we'd have to look at different overlays for that, just because it's a big metro, a lot of phone numbers. It has multiple area codes, and like the original area code for Toronto, which I forget off the top of my head, but that's been exhausted for a while, so probably hard to get the original area code. Excuse me. Next up, we've got conference bridges. I have 4. Right, this means I've enabled conferencing on 4 of my users, meaning that I have 4 people who can host or moderate a conference. Now, I'm not able to, you're not able to enable that feature until you have assigned a conference number first. All right, over here to the right, we've got your main company numbers. Right, these numbers will all behave the same way, meaning they all route to the same location. And for instance, they all have the same main greeting. If you wanted a phone number to have its own separate main greeting, let's say you have 2 businesses, that's where you would have the auto attendants come into play. And you want to have a plan that includes multiple auto attendants. Next up, we've got the conference number. Right, so everyone who's going to join a conference or host a conference would dial this phone number. You can have multiple conference numbers if you're so inclined. Next is the fax box number. Once you assign a number here, this enables faxing on your account. This is the number that you receive faxes on. Then we've got the company directory. This downloads a text file. So that way you can see all your users and their extension numbers, for example. Then we've got the soft phone directory. This downloads a file for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. Right, so you would download this file and then upload it to the VirtualPBX soft phone app on Windows or Mac OS. And this allows you to see all your other staff members who are making use of the VirtualPBX soft phone app and their status. Right, so I could see, oh, Bob, he's got a green icon, meaning he's available. I can give him a call. Likewise, coworker Angela, she's red, and I can see, oh, she's got the little on the phone icon, so I know she's on a call right now. Now, this only applies to everyone who's making use of the VirtualPBX soft phone app. So, for instance, if I have a coworker who has a desktop VoIP phone, right? Say a Yealink phone, and he's got the desktop soft phone, I can only see what he's doing with the soft phone app. All right, next up, we got your store discount code. So just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in our web store. And then here we've got the account realm. The account realm is used in a couple different things. One, it's used in programming or provisioning third-party soft phone application, right? So if you're using a soft phone from Counterpath, for example, or also for programming a VoIP phone that's not on our auto provision list. It's one of the key pieces of information you'd need in both those cases. The other place it's used is for outbound faxing. So on Dash, to send a fax out, you actually create an email, right? So in the to field of that email, you put the plus symbol, the number 1, the area code and phone number that you're faxing to, the @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you would attach a PDF or TIFF file and hit send. Right, the email, you don't need to type anything in the body of the email because that information won't get transmitted. Basically, you're sending the email to our system. Right, the system says, oh, grabs the phone number from the beginning of the email address, says, okay, that's where we're sending it to. Then it grabs the attachment and then says, okay, I'm going to translate this into analog signal, essentially, to send it as a fax. All right, up here, we've got caller ID. This is basically your default number up here, and then you've got the company caller ID name, excuse me, or CNAME. This can be up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. Once you click on Save Changes, that gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME. Now, this is what's referred to as provisioning your CNAME information. That's what we control, right? We said, hey, here's the CNAME information. Please update your servers. That takes about 3 business days to complete, give or take. So when your VoIP phone users pick up their VoIP phone and dial out, this is what will be sent along with their phone number. Right? Saying, hey, this is our phone number. Here is our company caller ID name. Now, when the call gets out, it goes through a number of carriers to get to the destination phone number. If one of those carriers in the between us and that destination doesn't support CNAME, then your CNAME information does not get through. Now, that's typically a result of the regional or smaller carriers. The big carriers like AT&T, T-Mobile, etc., they support CNAME. That's not the big deal. Now, another thing to keep in mind, though, is that carrier that the destination device is on, right, they ultimately have control over what gets displayed on the phones that are on their network, right? So, A, they have to support CNAME, first and foremost. But 2, it's something they have decided that they want to do. So when you're sending a call to, say, a cell phone, right? Say I pick up my VoIP phone, I call a AT&T cell phone. So AT&T itself, by default, would support CNAME, but on their cell phones, they may not actually choose not to, right? You may have the cell phone, the person I'm calling, right? They may have to choose on their cell phone plan to add CNAME as an additional fee, and then they would have it show up, right? It's AT&T who would decide to say, who can say, this is a spam risk when you're not, right? They're the ones ultimately who decide what shows up on their cell phone. Typically, when you want to test for CNAME, you want to go to another landline, if at all possible. So that way you don't have to worry about if the cell phone carrier is supporting CNAME or has a fee associated with that support. Company emergency information, E911. This is the address that's associated with this phone number up here. So basically, if from my VoIP phone, I pick up and I dial 911, this is the address information that gets sent to emergency services. So obviously, you want to make sure this is correct. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, one thing I should point out, this caller ID phone number, this is a default for several different things. So if I say your default company caller ID, this is what I mean, and I'll try to make sure to come back so you know what I'm talking about at that time. Hold music. So on Dash, you can upload your own files. You would just need to find them on your computer. It needs to be a .wav, .wav, or .mp3 file, recorded in mono, and under 1 megabyte in size. And then you would click on Upload and click on Save Changes. Now, one thing to keep in mind on Dash, hold music is after a call has reached a user, and then that user presses the hold button on their VoIP phone. That's when this hold music file plays. Up until that time, and so up until trying to connect to your users, the inbound caller is going to hear ringing. All right, next up is hours, but that's actually a part of main number, so we're just going to go to main number. Main number takes a long time to load compared to some of the other sections, and that's because there's a lot of information here. All right, so at the top, you got your main company numbers. So here you see all your main numbers, right? So anyone dial any of these 4 numbers, they're going to get to the same spot, which is what we're dealing with right here. You can add from spare numbers, right? So I have all these numbers I can choose to add as a main number if I'm so inclined. Or I can buy new numbers, right? So local, you enter in an area code. Let's go with, let's see if there's anything in 408. So we do have some numbers in 408. You can scroll down and the list will populate some more. But you would pick a number that you like, or multiple if you're so inclined. You see that your cart up here says you have two numbers. You got the numbers here. You can also remove a number from the cart, and then you would click on By Numbers. This is just activating it on the account and making sure that the number was still really available. And because I was in main numbers, that number was automatically slotted in here as a main number. Now, if I no longer want to use a number here, I would just click on Assign, for example. And now it's no longer a main number. It's still on my spare numbers, so I can reuse it if I need to. Now, any of these numbers, you can click on the little gear icon here. You can update the caller ID, right, the company name, as well as turn on accepting inbound CNAME information. You've got the E911, right, so you can set the address for each of your phone numbers. Prepend is a VoIP feature. Basically, you can put additional text in front of the caller ID, and this will show up on your users' VoIP phones on the displays, so they have an idea of what the call is about. Next up, we've got office hour strategy. So 24-hour open office, that's what new accounts start off as. Basically means, hey, you're open for business, calls are going to come in. Right, so your phone numbers don't have a busy tone, basically. For custom office hours, if you put a click in front of the button here, for each day of the week that you're open, you put a check mark. And then in these boxes here, you put your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Down at the bottom, which I don't know if you'll see on YouTube, there's an option here to say if you're closed for lunch, you put a check mark in front of that if you are, and then you can set your lunch hours or hours. Then there's office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, you put a check mark in front of this first section here. And then over here on the right, you've got add holiday. You've got the option for single day, date range, and advanced. Right? If you select one of these, it'll create a new row. And for single day, for instance, you give it a name like President's Day. You choose the month and the day, and then you would click on Save Changes. For date range, like we have here for Christmas, I say start on December 23rd, end on December 26th. The system will automatically put you in holiday mode once the calendar flips to those dates, and then back off. Now, one thing I should mention here about the date range, you notice that there's no year indicator here. So you want to avoid a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, because the system doesn't know which years you're talking about. It will just put you in after hours mode all year. And then for advanced, it's like right here on this retreat option here, where I'm just saying, hey, the first Friday in July, we're on holiday, right? Company picnic day. Now, this pull down, which unfortunately is not showing, you have first through fourth as well as last, right? And then each day of the week. And then any changes here, you would click on Save Changes. Right, incoming call handling. Now, again, we're dealing with my main numbers. So these four numbers up at the top, during my open hours, I'm having them all come in here to my virtual receptionist. Doesn't matter which number they're calling, they're all going to end up here during my open hours. Right? During my after hours, I can choose one of these other options, if I'm so inclined, as well as for my holiday. Right. So during open hours, calls come in, go into my virtual receptionist. I click on the virtual receptionist, because that's a link. And here, I've got my main menu on the left, your greetings and settings on the right. Now, main menu, that just means what people press on their phone to navigate through your phone system, right? You click on Add Route here at the bottom. You've got default and then star and 0 through 9 to choose from. And then you tell where does that button go, right? So if I go up here to number 1, you see you've got a bunch of options to choose from. So first one is the smart directory, meaning people can type in people's names. You can select a specific user. You can select a call queue if you're making use of ACD queues. You can send a call to a specific device. Now, typically, we don't recommend that just because if the device doesn't have voicemail, for example, then eventually the call just ends. Scroll down. You can also send it to a media file. But again, once the media file ends, the call ends. So not always recommended, depends on what you're trying to do. Green groups, these are departments. Advanced call flows, this is if you're making use of sub-menuing. And then you can send it to a specific voicemail box. And then each one of these has a different little icon. So once you get used to the icons, you know exactly what kind of call they're going to. Over here on the right, you've got your greeting options. You've got text to speech. You just type it in, and you click update. You would scroll down to the bottom to click on save and then save changes. One thing about the text to speech greeting, it's limited to about 350 to 400 characters, and it kind of depends on how complicated the greeting is. You can upload your own file, right? Again, .wav, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You can choose from existing recordings. So if you've already uploaded greetings or made other greetings, they'll all be displayed here. You can record it over the phone. Now, when the system says pick up a registered phone, that means a VoIP phone on the account. To get past that, if you just want to use like your cell phone, down here under settings, you want to make sure allow outside recording is set to on. Now, we don't recommend leaving it on just because someone could always dial in and just randomly hit numbers, and suddenly they can, they might guess the PIN number, and then suddenly they're, recording a new greeting over the file you have. So anyway, so from a phone, right? So we'll say from your cell phone, you call into your main number. When you hear, if you don't have a greeting play, right, it'll say a greeting for this menu has not been set. At that time, you would enter the PIN number. It will walk you through recording a greeting. And then you would save and update, and then it would show up as the default. Now, if you already have a greeting file in place, right? So let's say you've been with us for a little while. You're like, oh, spring's here. We're going to have a special spring promotions greetings in place. So you call in and you record, right? So when you call in, you hear your greeting A, right? Greeting file A is what you have currently playing. You hear that file, you hit the PIN number here, and then you record a new greeting. Well, greeting file A, that file name stays the same. You just overwrote the content, right? You replaced the content with the new data. So if you wanted to go back to the original greeting file A, you wouldn't be able to, right? So just something to keep in mind is when you record over the phone, whatever greeting is already there, you're recording over that. We have professional recording services. When you click order, you'll be taken to another website hosted by Snap Recordings, who we have partnered with. They have 80 to 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have various versions of English, Spanish, and French, so you can do a multilingual greeting, right? Or you can have like UK English greeting if you're so inclined. They also have hold treatment options, meaning like a music file and then a script is read off. They handle their own pricing and their own billing, right? They just want credit card information. They send you the file via email, and then you simply just upload your own file. All right, settings, number of retries on missed dial. Basically, how many times can the inbound caller select an invalid option? or after the greeting file plays, how many times, can they listen to the greeting before the system either ends the call or sends them to the default action. Typically, 1 or 2 is plenty. You don't typically need to much go beyond that. Dialing timeout. This is how much time the system waits after it hears the button press before it assumes the person is done. Right? So in this case, I have it set to 1. So I press, say, 4. The system waits for 1 second, and then it sends me to menu option 4, which is going to a call queue. Allow outside recording. Again, that allows you to record things over the phone with a cell phone or a landline. Typically, you only want that on when you want to record something over the phone, or your main greeting over the phone. And then allow dialing extensions. If you turn this on, then when your inbound caller gets to your virtual receptionist, right, they hear the greeting play, but at any time they can enter the extension number of the person they want to reach. As long as it's a valid extension, they'll be sent to that person. Now, the default route, again, this if someone calls in and they fail to enter a valid option, right, a couple times, they'll be sent, in this case, by default to the smart directory. Now, that can be an issue for robodialers, right, because robodialers aren't going to hit a valid option. Eventually, they will get to your default route, and then basically taking it minutes on your plan. So if you end up having a lot of robodialers, I said you probably want to get rid of the default route just to avoid having them soak up minutes on your plan. So any changes you make under your main menu, your greetings, or these settings, you need to click Save here, and then you need to click Save Changes under Incoming Call Handling. Next, we'll take a look here. Second option here, call. This is the live operator answer option. So basically, call comes in, they're going to ring to Aaron. If Aaron isn't able to pick up, then it will go to my open hours virtual receptionist. Right. Same options that we just had, because we're still under open hours. Now, this is a pull down, so I can select up a different user. I can send it to a call queue. I can send it to a device. You can send it to a media file, and you can also send it to ring groups and advanced call flows. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the call is only going to be offered to Aaron here for 20 seconds, and then it goes to the virtual receptionist. Right. So, but again, this is so you're giving a staff member, or in the case of groups or queues, multiple staff members, an opportunity to answer the call first. If they're not able to, then the inbound caller gets the virtual receptionist, where they can enter in an extension number or menu option to speak to somebody. All right, third option, again, I'm offering a call to Aaron. If he isn't able to pick up, it goes to his voicemail box. Again, I can choose different people, different groups, media file, devices, etc. But there is one additional option where I have here is skip to voicemail. So if call comes in, it goes straight to his voicemail box or any other voicemail box on the account that I so desire. And then lastly, we've got this advanced call flows. Basically, I can send it to one of my other auto attendants. But generally speaking, if you're going to send it to a different auto attendant, you should make that your main system, and then whatever you have here becomes one of your secondary attendants, which we'll be getting into next. Right, you have these same options. However, your virtual receptionist is going to be different. Right, you'll have different menu options. You'll probably have a different greeting because it's after hours. You have these different settings. Right, holidays. This is actually where I see it most often, where a customer would have call, skip to voicemail, and go to a specific voicemail box, right, saying, hey, we're closed. Please leave a message. We'll come back to you on the next business day. Main conference number, you can have multiple conference numbers, right? So I can add from spare or by numbers. You have a custom greeting here. This is actually a custom text-to-speech greeting. If you click enable, you can type in a script here, and then you would click on save. Now, even if you didn't enable a custom greeting, the system would still start with, welcome to the conference. Please enter the conference room number, followed by the pound key, and then the PIN number, followed by the pound key. All right, main fax box number, you can only have the one fax box number, and then you can edit the fax box. Now, on this account, the fax box is broken, unfortunately, but on your accounts, when you click edit fax box, you'll see a pop-up come up with two fields. The first is for the inbound notification. Basically, you put an email address here, and any fax that comes in, that email address will get an email saying, hey, you have a fax, and an attachment with a PDF of the inbound fax. One thing to keep in mind, if someone dials your fax box number, right, and then hears the fax tone, then hangs up, that email address on the inbound notifications will still get an email letting you know, hey, you had a failed fax attempt. Right? It doesn't know that someone, dialed the wrong number and hung up. It just said, hey, the fax system picked up, but then no fax came through. The second field under the fax box is for outbound permissions. Typically speaking, if you own your own company domain, for example, you would put your company domain in that second field, and then anybody at your company, right, who has an email address can then fax out. They don't have to be a user on your Dash account, right? So let's say you have an intern named Dylan. You don't need to add them as a user, but you do want him to, fax these documents out to prospective customers, right? So you just make sure he has an email address that, in your company domain, and you give him how to fax out, and then he can spend his day sending out a bunch of emails. Well, he thinks he's sending out a bunch of emails. The system is grabbing those and sending them as faxes. Now, again, there is a lag between when you get the notification that a fax has gone through. So like you send the email off, right? And then the system, grabs the information, translates the file into an analog signal and sends it out. Once it's done, then it lets you know, oh, it completed, or it wasn't able to complete for whatever reason, right? But there's usually some lag time. It's not going to be instantaneous. I once, as a test, we sent out a 7-megabyte document via fax. It took over an hour for us to get the notification that it went through. All right. Next up is auto attendance. Now, this is a plan-specific feature. So if you're interested in this, this is something you would want to speak to our account services team about to enable it, or probably to change your plan to one that includes multiple auto attendants. There's two primary use cases that we see, at least so far. The first is you have multiple businesses that you want on the same account, right? But each of those businesses has their own phone number and their own main greeting, right? They're, right? So unique phone numbers, unique greetings, but the calls are coming into the same staff people, right? So you have a dog walking business and a cleaning business, and your staff people are handling both those calls, right? But they each would have a different greeting and a different phone number. The other use case I mentioned briefly is submenuing. So for instance, on your main number, when a call comes in, the greeting says, press 1 for English and 2 for Spanish. And then you make those two menu options, 1 and 2, go to a second menu, or second and third menu, technically, right? So you would set up an auto attendant for English. It would have an English greeting. The menu options would go to English staff members, right? Then you would set up a second auto attendant for Spanish. It would have a Spanish greeting going to your Spanish-speaking staff members, right? Those are the two primary reasons people go for multiple auto attendants. To create an attendant, you click here at the top, add attendant. You give it a name, you give it an extension number. The extension number is not something your customers will probably know, but your staff members can, or your admins at least, can view it, and then they could transfer calls to another attendant if they needed to. If you click on the name of an attendant, you can then have the option to make it available in the main menu. So this one here, second test AA, right? It's not currently available in a main menu, meaning it's a standalone attendant, right? It has its own phone number. It's going to have a unique greeting, right? So this is a secondary business. Where if I go to sample test A here, or sample A, you see it's available in a main menu, meaning it can be a sub-menu option. So likely not its own business, right? If you click on the phone numbers box, you can assign, right, additional phone numbers from your spare number list, or you can buy new ones if you need to buy new ones. You can click on the extensions box and add additional extensions if you're so inclined. And then under the wrench icon, under settings, once it loads, you see here, okay, during my open hours, go to the virtual receptionist, right, after hours and holidays. Now, the open hours, after hours, and holidays, these all match everything we set up under the main number. So if you have multiple businesses, but they have different hours of operations, by default, you would need either, by default, right, the system wouldn't be able to accommodate that kind of situation. You would need to either have custom work done by our product specialist team, which might incur a setup fee, or you would want to look at having separate accounts. But if you click on the virtual receptionist here, just like we were looking at before, you click on add route and where you want it to go. Right, same greeting types, options, etc. Now, unfortunately, right, currently your secondary attendants here, they can only go to the virtual receptionist no matter what time of day. So you would need to set these up individually. So for instance, you would set up like a default route. And the greeting, and say, so it's, for instance, you could set a default route, go directly to a voicemail box for your after hours for this other business. Currently, you can have up to 10 attendants. At least I believe that's the default as of right now. All right, next up we have devices. Right, so these are the devices your staff members use to make and receive calls. Green means it's connected, meaning we can send calls to it. Red means it's unregistered, i.e. we cannot send a call to it. And black means you turned it off. You disabled the device. To add a new device, click up here at the top, and we start off with SIP phone. Again, this is that physical VoIP phone. Now, these are the manufacturers that we support with what's called auto provisioning. If you click on a particular manufacturer, you'll see the various models that are supported. So if you want to go shop or price compare on your own, you can do so. Once you have the phone, right, you would find the model here. You give it a name, right? So you can call it Bob's phone, and then you enter the MAC address. This is unique to each device. Usually you can find it as a sticker on the back of the phone, or if it's powered up under like menu status, one of the basic settings is a MAC address, and then you would enter that information here. You would click on create device and then assign it to a user. Now, in terms of the actual dashboard here, you're done. For the device, you actually need to get into the web user interface of the device, meaning you need to get the IP address from the phone, enter that IP address into your browser's address bar, log into the phone's web interface through the browser. You need to get to the auto provisioning section and enter in a URL, basically telling the phone, hey, get on the internet, go to this place. It does so. It gives its MAC address. The system says, oh, I know who you are or what you are and what account you're on. Here's your configuration information. Your VoIP phone will then reboot usually a couple times, and then it'll come up as a green device. Now, for the specifics, you want to go to the dash support pages, right? So go to virtualpbx.com, mouse over support, select the dash support, scroll down about a third of the way down, and towards the right, you're looking for a document called Auto Provisioning Phones. It will have screenshots, it will have the specific URL you need, and any other adjustments you need to make for your specific phone. And then you should be all set. Right? Now, for any phone that isn't listed, right, you can't find your model phone, you can't even find that one that's close, right? Like it's a digit off between the T41 that you couldn't find. It has, maybe it's a T41 Z, right? You could try the S or the P or even the U and see if that would work. But if you can't find anything close, then you would have to go looking at the soft phone here. Now, no matter what soft phone you use, you're going to get this message here, basically saying be careful about using 911 from a wireless VoIP device, since you might not be at the location that is associated with it. Now, by default, after you close, you're on a third-party soft phone. So you give it a name, and then you would copy, right, the SIP username. When you click on the SIP password, you'd copy and paste that, and then you'd also copy and paste your realm, and you would use that to program your VoIP phone, or let's say you're using a software from Counterpath. Right, you would click on Create Device and assign it to a user, and then go into that device's UI and program the phone. Cell phone and landline are basically the same. You give it a device name, and then you put the plus sign, the number 1, area code, and phone number, and then you click Create Device. Now, when Dash sends a call to a cell phone or landline, right, these are the default advanced options. So, call comes in, goes to your cell phone rings, and you pick it up. You'll hear, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. Right? By pressing 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. Right? It hears that one tone, it connects the inbound caller to you, you begin talking. Now, if you're actually using cell phone or landline to send calls to an automated answering service, right? Let's say your after hours answering service, right? That automated system can't press 1. So what you would want to do is click this box here in front of allow use of cell phone voicemail. So now call gets sent to that phone number. We hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? We're not waiting for that one tone to come through. Now, if this is really your cell phone, if your cell phone voicemail picks up and you have this, checked this way, that inbound caller ends up on your cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that, some people don't. Just depends on your preference. The other thing is when a call comes into your cell phone, by default, you'll see that inbound person's phone number, right? So then you might look at it, like, I don't recognize that phone, and your customer ends up in voicemail. If you uncheck Keep Original Caller ID and click on Save Changes, then you'll see your main company number show up on your cell phone's display, right? And what I mean by that, this number here. That would show up on your phone's display. So you know, oh, this is a business call, and you might be more willing to take it because you can, right? Versus some random phone number you don't recognize. Web phone, and it has that same warning message, but you give it a device name, and then you would want to assign it to a user. But give it a device name, click on Create Device, and then you would assign it to a user. At that point, the users would have when they log in under the help sign, they would have the web phone option here. Check something real quick. Normally there's an option to add the VirtualPBX soft phone. I'll double check that under users. All right, so let's go over to the greetings manager. So here you see your greetings on your account. Recording means you recorded over the phone. TTS means this was a text-to-speech greeting. Right? Upload means you uploaded the file. You can download this file to listen to them to see if they're still relevant. Right? If you click on the little wrench icon under Edit, you can change the name or delete the file if you don't need it any longer. You can add files up here. Just give it a name, find the file. And in this case, right, it needs to be a .wav.mp3 recorded in mono. But then you would click on Create Greeting. It would upload the file, and then it would show up here. And then these greetings you can use basically anywhere where you have a greeting option. Groups is shorthand for ring groups. Right, departments, essentially. You click on Add a Group at the top. You give it a name and an extension number. And then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group. And then you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name. You can always change the name. And then you have the group call attempts, right? Little arrows here to the right, so you can increase the number of attempts. Basically, this is how many times the inbound caller can ring through to your staff members. Now, if you click on the members box, right, you can see your staff members. Oh, it looks like I removed a couple of people, so we'll go ahead and clear that up. And right now, you can see, oh, they're ringing everybody at the same time, right? So call comes in, they're ringing Jan, Jean, Bob, John, and Michael until one of them picks up. Now, if a second call comes in, they're all going to ring. So let's say the first call came in and Bob picked up, right? And then a second call comes in while he's still on that first call. Bob will hear a call waiting beep on his side. Right? The person he's talking to won't, but he will hear it until one of the other staff members picks up. Now, notice up here, you've got these are time stamps, and this last one you can edit, right? So you can change it to 60 seconds. Right, it's measured in seconds, or you can change it like 600, etc. You also have this option to distribute. So now it's going to, if I click on it, right, now everyone has an equal amount of time, and it goes in order, right? So Jan, Jean, etc. If I don't like this order, right, I can click and drag people around and then redistribute. So now Michael's first. Right, these are sliders, so you can do things like this to adjust, right? So you have some overlap between people if you're so inclined, and then you would click on Save Changes. Now, one thing to keep in mind about groups, right? Staff members are in the group. They can't log themselves out of the group, other than D&D, right? So if a call gets to group after hours, their phones will ring. That's something just to keep in mind. Extensions, again, groups can have multiple extensions. Groups can also have their own phone numbers, right? So you can add it from spare or buy new. Right, get the little gear icon here too, if you're someone to adjust. And then we have got group features. So ringback, this is essentially hold music for the group. If you click enable, you can upload .wav.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. The main thing to keep in mind is for ringback is you want to make sure the file matches your total ring time in the group. Right? The system will not automatically loop the file for you, and when the file stops, it treats it as if the call ended. And that's where we get into next action. So when you have this enabled, if no one picks up, what do you want the system to do? And in this case, I'm sending it to a voicemail box. To pull down though, I can send them back to the main menu. I can send it to one of my other attendants. I can send it to one of my ACD queues, a specific device, or specific user, or a specific voicemail box. Allow call forward. If you click enable, basically you're allowing your users to make use of call forwarding, right? So they're not going to be at their normal desk phone. They can send calls to their cell phone. Caller ID prepend, this is a VoIP feature. If you click enable, you can add either text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on the VoIP phone's displays. Again, it gives your staff members a heads up. So groups, right, there's no fees for groups, right, versus ACD queues, which we'll get to later, which has their own fees associated with it. Groups, you can your staff members can take calls from cell phones or VoIP phones or landlines, whereas queues, you can only take calls from a VoIP device, right? So no cell phones, no landlines currently in groups. Also, queues, your staff members can log themselves in and out of a queue. They can mark themselves away. Whereas, as I mentioned in groups, they're in the group, calls come in, they're automatically going to get their phone rung. All right, numbers. This goes to your, so right now we're on numbers in use, right? This is your number manager. Basically, you chose where your numbers that you're using and where they go. You also have your spare numbers here, right? So numbers you're not using. Now, if you want to get rid of numbers off your account, right? Like in this case, I have 36 phone numbers. I'm like, I don't want to pay for all these phone numbers. So what I can do is I can click on the box in front of a phone number. Like so. And then you notice this delete option came up. So then I click on delete. It says, are you sure you want to delete these numbers? I say, yes, I do. It says they have been deleted. And now they're removed from my account. So I just save myself some money every month. Right, you can always buy numbers here, local or toll free. Right, same option here. It's just that they just go into your spare number pool. Port is the industry term to move a phone number from one carrier to another. You click on new port request, give it a name, say local or toll free, click next. And then it's asking you to upload a bill copy, right, a PDF, and then there are more steps. It'll give you the option to download a blank letter of agency or LOA, and then to upload the completed and signed LOA. You submit those documents as well as some other information, and that gets sent to our porting team, right? You'll get an email immediately from the system saying, hey, you've submitted your documents. By the next business day, you should get a second email from our porting team saying, yes, we did get your documents. Here's what to expect next among the porting process. If for some reason the upload didn't take, right, you're like, it didn't submit, or I didn't get both emails, you can go ahead and email porting at virtualpbx.com and submit the documents that way. Right? We'll, as long as we get the documents, we can submit the port request. Right? You don't just have to do it through the portal. Some things to keep in mind. The LOA, the letter of agency, right? When I say completed and signed, the information it's going to ask for, like your company name and the address, that should match what your current carrier has on file. So let's say you're moving a number from AT&T to VirtualPBX. At AT&T, they know you as ABC Cleaners. But at VirtualPBX, you decided to change your name to CleanMax, right? Well, on the letter of agency, you need to have ABC Cleaners as the company name and whatever address they have associated with that phone number. Right? We'll be able to know what account you are because we can find you in our system and associate it properly. It does need to be signed. Now, it can be a digital signature, right? You don't have to print it out, sign it, and rescan it. You can do so, but you can just use a digital signature. That's fine. You can't just type the name in, right, where it says, customer name and then signature. You can't type it in both spots. That will get rejected, and that takes delays when the port will complete. Toll-free numbers typically take about 5 business days for their ports to complete, give or take. Local numbers anywhere from 1 day, in the term like Google Voice numbers can port in 1 day, up to on average 2 to 3 weeks. If we get a rejection notice, it's a fairly generic notice, right? It's going to say address mismatch. They're not going to say, specifically, oh, you missed you missed a digit in the address, or you misspelled the street name, right? It's not going to give us that level of detail. Or like it'll say authorized user mismatch, right? It's not going to tell us, oh, it's supposed to be Bob, not Angela, right? And they're not going to give us that level of detail. So what information we get, we will pass on to you, saying, hey, we got this rejection. Here's the reason. You probably want to contact your current carrier to find out what the correct information should be. All right, let's go to users. All right, these are all the users on your account. The little gray person, that's a standard user. Person with a suit is a system admin. You can click user, add user at the top, excuse me. You enter in the first and last name. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user. And then you create a password for them and then assign them their main extension number. Now, I started this system with extension 1000, so it's saying the next available extension in that series is 1011. I can change this if I want to, right? I can make it 5210. It just depends on what numbering scheme you want to use. By default, the system will create a voicemail box for the user, and it's intrinsically tied to that user. You can choose to have them in the company directory or not, and you can always change your mind later. The send to an alternate address. This will supersede the email address used for login in terms of like password recovery, the voicemail notifications, etc. And again, you can change that later. And then probably the most important one, send credentials to the user. And then when you're ready, you click on create user if that's the only one you need to add. If you need to add multiple, you have create user and add another. Once the user is created, you can click on their name. You can edit their name, right? You can change their credentials, right? Their email address or their password. You also have the option here to resend the password reset email. And then you will click on Save Changes. Change PIN. This is a temporary PIN number for getting into their voicemail box. Now, for your VoIP phone users, the first time they call in, or what they actually from their VoIP phones, they can hit *98. That will log them into that voicemail box that was created at the same time the user was created. The system will then prompt them to create a PIN number for their voicemail box, and as well as create their voicemail greeting. Right. For your landline or cell phone users, you do need to create a PIN number for them. Right, here's the option to send to an alternate address, as well as the user directory. This is a pull down, so you can make a user an admin or an admin into a user. This is so you can have find the time zone for the user, right? So you have staff working in different parts of the world. This is the display language, English, French, German, and Russian. And that's what displays in your Dash web pages. Ringing timeout, default is 20 seconds. This is how much time the system is going to ring to a user's device. For landlines and VoIP phones, 20 seconds is plenty. If you have users who are just using a cell phone, you'd want to increase this to 45 seconds to a minute. And how I explain it is basically from a PBX system when calls go out to other devices. Right, call comes in. If we're sending it to, say, a landline, right, we say, hey, landline company, we're sending calls to this phone number. Landline company goes, oh, we know exactly where that is. Here, send a call here. Versus call comes in, now we're sending it to cell phone company. We say, hey, cell phone company, we need to send, call to this phone number. Cell phone company says, hold up, we need to find them first, right? Ping signal off of the cell phone towers, finds you, and says, all right, we found them, send the call. And then the call goes through. It's that delay is why you would need a longer ring time for a cell phone versus a landline. All right, the extension box, you can have users have multiple extensions. You just click on add extension and add a different extension number. Users can have their own voice phone numbers, right, individually, so you can either add some spare or by numbers. Under devices, you can assign a spare device to a user or a new device. And here you have the option to change a third-party soft phone to use a VirtualPBX application, right? So you give it a name, click on Create Device. So for the VirtualPBX soft phone, desktop or mobile, you give it a name, make sure it says Use VirtualPBX application. You click on Create Device, right? And then you would click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, Angelica, in this case, would get an email saying, hey, your cell phone's been created. Here's your login information. If she's using it on her iPhone or Android phone, she can then download the app, VPBX phone, to her device and start using it. Now, if you wanted Angelica to use it on Windows system or a Mac system, then you would need to get a desktop license for that device, which you can get through the web store. It's a one-time fee. I think the list price is $39.99. Now, I believe the Flex plan does include a desktop soft phone as a potential option, so that's something you can look at as well. And then we've got user features. So caller ID number only comes into play for a user that has a phone number. So here, let's go up to Aaron. Oops. I think I'm clicking too fast. All right, so you turn it on, and then now Aaron's outbound caller ID is going to be the 702 phone number instead of the main company number. Right, call forwarding. You have off, on, or failover mode. Off means you're not using it. On means you are using it, meaning, hey, calls come to me, send it to this other phone number. Right, meaning I'm not going to be at my normal phone. Failover mode is for your VoIP phone users. Right, so if their VoIP phone goes offline, the system will detect that, and the call happens to come in at that time, it will automatically forward to this phone number. Now, the main thing to remember about the forwarding phone number, right? This should not be a device on the user, right? So Aaron should not have his cell phone as a device if he's going to send it to his cell phone as a forwarding option. All right, hot desking, VoIP feature. This is if you're in a shared office environment where people can be changing desks from day to day. Right, so today's Tuesday. Let's say I roll into the office and I'm sitting at desk number 7. I would enter in my hot desk ID. I usually say match it. Like if you're using 4-digit extensions, I say just match it to their extension number. That way it's easy to remember. As an admin, up to you if you want to make them require a PIN. But so I'm sitting at desk number 7. I pick up the handset of the VoIP phone that's at desktop, and I hit *11. That turns hot desking on. The phone, the system will then ask me for my hot desk ID. I enter that, and then it will say, in this case, since I'm not requiring a PIN number, it will say calls will now be sent to this device. So now anytime calls are coming to my user, right, they're going to ring at the phone I'm sitting at. At the end of my day, I pick up the phone, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking, I go home. The next time I come into the office, right, someone's already sitting at desk number 7, I'm like, All right, cool beans. I'm sitting at desk number 32 today. Again, do the same thing. *11, enter my hot desk ID. Calls are coming to me at that desk. Voicemail is enabled because it was created at the same time the user was. You've got some other options where I have transcription available. Voicemail to email is typically enabled by default. This means I get an email sent to my login email address, and it's going to have an attachment where I can just double click on it and listen to it directly from my computer. You may want to delete the messages from the database after the notification. Voicemail boxes are limited to 100 messages, and after that, if someone tries to leave a message, they get that message saying, voicemail box is full, please try again later, right? This way, since you're attaching the email or voicemail to the email, then your users are getting all their voicemails, so then you can just delete it. That way they don't have to worry about it getting full. Now, if you have staff members who like calling in to listen to their voicemail or going through the portal, then you would leave that unchecked. Fax box. Users can have their own fax box. If you click enable, again, you can select a spare number, you can buy a new number, or you can select an extension number. Now, if you choose an extension number, it has to be one that's not already being in use. Right, so I can go 350, and then I select that extension. So now I have a fax box extension. Right, I would click on Save Changes. Now, in order for Aaron here to receive the faxes, right, the person faxing in has to dial one of my main numbers. When they get to that main greeting, they have to enter in 350, and then they hit fax send or send fax, whatever their fax machine says. Right, now, this also may not work well with all fax machines, because maybe not all fax machines you can listen in so you know exactly when to hit 350, or there's no way to put in a delay in the programming of the fax number you're sending it to. Also, for some electronic fax services, right, eFax, they may not have the option to fax to an extension. So in that case, you would probably want to have a phone number. All right, conferencing or conference bridge. I can enable conferencing on a user because I have a main conference number already. Here's their conference room number. Then I can enter in their personal PIN number, and then I click on Save Changes. Now, the users, they can set their own conference PIN numbers through the user portal. Oh, I should also mention, for call forwarding, the users can set up their call forwarding to on themselves. They can either do that through the user portal, or they can do that through their VoIP phone. I'll cover that shortly. Follow Me, Follow Me only works with users with multiple devices. So we'll go down here to Jan. And here, let's get it down to how it looks. So when you first enable Follow Me, it will look like this. And you basically need to tell, okay, which devices are you going to ring to? You uncheck those devices, and then you have sliders. You notice here you have the total ring time. All right, I can click Distribute. All right, just like in groups, I can change the order if I want to as well. Music on hold. Staff members can have their own hold music. Just upload a .wave.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. And this will supersede the hold music you placed under the dashboard. Customized call recording. So by default, when you enable it, it looks like this. And then you need to choose the kinds of calls you want to record. Right? So inbound internal means another dash user called in. right? Inbound external means a customer called in, right, outside the system, right? Outbound internal means I called a coworker. Outbound external means I called the customer. Right, and then do not disturb. Now this is something only admin, right? Everything we're going through is admin only. Just keep that in mind. All right, voicemail boxes. Here you can see your voicemail boxes. You see your users and then that they have their own voicemail boxes associated with them. You can create your own, right? Add voicemail box at the top. Give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and then you would click on create device or create voicemail box, excuse me. If you click on a wrench icon under advanced, you got greeting media. So you can upload a voicemail greeting to any voicemail box, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in Mondo under 1 megabyte. You also have the option for a temporary file, right? i.e. the vacation voicemail greeting. So if you select something under temporary, other than none, it will supersede the media file, right? Once you put this back to none, then your default media file plays. Recipients. So for a manually created voicemail box, you do want to add a recipient. You would just click add recipient, enter in the email address, and then if you only need to add one, you click save changes. If you need to add multiple, you would click add to add the next person or email address. So once you have a media file and a recipient, you go to options, and then for a manually created voicemail box, at that point you would just click on already set up. It's good to go. Right, for your user voicemail boxes, you know, you don't have to worry about that since there already is an email address for delivery, and the users you would expect would create their own greetings. And then you have these options here for delete after notification, attach to voicemail, etc. Advanced routing. Typically, the only thing that shows up here is the direct inward system access, or DISA. What this does is it allows you to have a cell phone or LAN user call into your system, or log in over the phone, and then make an outbound call. And when they make that outbound call, the phone number that shows up on the outbound caller ID is not their cell phone number, but your main company number, right? So you would click enable, and then I usually recommend giving it an extension number. So that way, for myself, when I call into my main number, I enter in this extension number. The system will then ask me for the PIN number. Then I'll hear a dial tone, and then I enter the area code and phone number I'm trying to reach out to. And then, you know, hopefully I connect to that other person, but the phone number they see is this 702 phone number, not my cell phone number. Now, by default, this is not enabled on accounts, just because if someone figures out the PIN number and or the extension number, they could log in and make outbound calls on your account without you knowing about it. And that can be bad for your bill. But if you do want that enabled, you can just send a request to our team and we can get that enabled. Call logs basically shows your call activity on the account. So green arrow to the right means a call came into the system, and you can click on it for more details. Normally, here we go. Right, and then on a call that actually went to a user, you can see, oh, it went to this device. and what have you. Now, originate or cancel means the inbound person hung up before the user could pick up. Normal clearing just lets you know the call ended normally, etc. You can download this file. It's going to be a CSV file, so you can look at it in Excel. The orange arrow or the yellow arrow to the left, that means it's an outbound call. You can also click on the little fire hydrant icon here to report a call. This will give it some technical details. It'll create an email to our support team. You're going to want to type in the body of that email what you experienced, right? Like, i.e., your phone didn't ring, or you had bad call quality issues, or something like that, just so we know what we're dealing with. Feature codes, I've already talked about a couple of these, but these are codes from VoIP phones, typically, that you can use to access features. This one down here, you can call into your main number and hit *97 from a cell phone or landline. Then it's going to prompt you for a voicemail box number and then that PIN number, and then you can access the voicemail that way, assuming you don't have delete after notification associated with that voicemail box. All right, up here, so we've been on the dashboard this entire time. So now we're going to move over to ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution, so call center feature. Typically speaking, what we're looking at here are standard ACD queues. These are $15 to $30 per month per queue, depending on your plan. There's also ACD Queues Pro, which is, I believe, starts at $99 per month per queue, again, depending on the plan. Now, to create a queue, you would click on Add New Queue. I'm just going to click on that little wrench icon for the existing queue here. You give it a name, and then you give it a phone number or an extension. Right? Can have one or the other, versus groups can have both. Right? Then you have a queue routing strategy. Oh, hold on, it's not working. So you've got most idle, meaning whoever's been waiting the longest for a call gets the next call that comes in. You have ring all, meaning everyone's phone rings until someone picks up among your staff members who are logged in. You have round robin, which will equalize the calls over time among your staff members. You have least calls, meaning the least amount of connected calls, right? So say Bob and Mary have been logged into the queue. Bob has spoken to 2 customers. Mary's spoken to 5 customers. Under least calls, the next call that comes in goes to Bob. Now, you also have least offers, which is, so in that scenario, let's say Bob has been offered 20 calls, only spoken to 2, but Mary has spoken to 5, right? She's only spoken to 5 people, but she's only been offered 5 calls. Well, under least offers, the next call that comes in goes to Mary. In both of those last 2 situations, let's say Daryl logs in, well, he's at 0, right? He just started his day. He would get the next call that comes in. All right, hold treatment. You can upload a file, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono. Now, under ACD Queues Pro, you have more options for hold treatment. You can have multiple media files play, for example. You can also have announce their wait time or expected wait time, announce their position in line, etc. Queue timeout, this is how much time an inbound caller can wait on hold, measured in seconds. The queue call limit, this is the number of people who can be waiting on hold, and this is on top of people who are already speaking to staff members, right? So let's say Mary and Bob are already talking, right, on active calls with 2 people, right, or 1 each. 4 additional people can be waiting on hold on top of those 2. Now, timeout immediately if empty, if this is enabled, this means if I have no staff members logged in and a call comes into the queue, the system will treat that inbound call as if it already hit this 3600 timeout. Escalation queue, I can send calls to a second queue if my staff members are busy. And then escalation call flow after timeout. So after this 3,600 seconds timeout reached, inbound callers are sent to this voicemail box. Now this is a pull down. You can see I can send them nowhere, meaning the call ends. I can send them back to call flow, a specific device, a group, a media file, users, or voicemail boxes. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if a call comes through this queue, all my staff members are busy, and I have it overflow into an escalation queue, right? So calls in a second queue, but it started in this queue. Once this 3,600 seconds expires, that call, even if it's in the second queue, gets sent to this voicemail box because it started in this queue. Agent behavior, agent recovery in seconds. Basically, after an agent is done with a call, it won't offer them a call from this queue for 30 seconds, right? And you can change that to 15, or you can just leave it or put it at 0. Force away on rejected or missed. If an agent misses a call, the system will put them on away mode, and then they have to put themselves back in ready mode. And then agent connect timeout, how much time the system tries to ring their device. Default is 20 seconds, because again, queues, you can only use VoIP devices, so 20 seconds is typically plenty. All right, once you've created a queue, over here on the left, you would want to click on members. These are all my staff members who are allowed to be in any given queue. So I click on manage members. Now I'll see my staff members who are not currently in queues. I can select them and then click add as members. It'll update, and now you'll see they're here. So now I can assign these 2 new people to my queues. If I go back here, right, I can add an agent, and we can add Angelica, for example, and then click on save. I don't know if that actually went through. Once you have agents assigned to a queue, you can then select one of those agents to be a manager. Right, so then once you've assigned agents, right, they can then click on ACD queues. Once they're here, they would click on begin session. You notice I've logged in to this one queue. And I'm start off as away, right? And I'm red. Right, I can mark myself as ready, and now I'll turn green. Blue, if this icon here or bar is blue, that means I'm on an inbound call. Yellow is I'm on an outbound or external call, and then gold is I'm on recovery time. Up here, this little phone icon, your staff members can choose which VoIP device they want calls to receive on, or what VoIP device they want to receive calls on. Sometimes I can speak, really. Now you also have feature codes from your VoIP devices that you can adjust your queue status, right? *20 logs you in, 21 should mark you as ready, *22 marks you as away, *23 logs you out. Right? But mark away, that's what you do for lunchtime, right? Going on a break, etc. End of session means end of your day, right? Log out, so that way I don't receive calls from the queue. All right, blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to block inbound caller IDs from reaching your system, right? You're blocking numbers from reaching you. You would click on edit blacklists. You would either click add to create a list for the first time, or just click on an existing list. Right? Give the list a name. Block anonymous. If you turn this on, that means if we get invalid caller ID, right? So there's no actual phone number coming in on that inbound call, we'll block the call from reaching the system. And then you would click add number. You put +1 area code and phone number, and you keep clicking add for each of the phone numbers you want to add to the list. You would then click save. You go back to settings, and then you make sure that list is over here on the right. Right, so these are my active lists, meaning any phone numbers on either of these lists that try to call any of my phone numbers on my account, they get busy tone, so they're not getting through. And then you just click update. Dynamic caller ID, this is also a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change what your outbound caller ID is that your users are showing. Right, so one thing to keep in mind, the only outbound caller IDs you can choose from are phone numbers on your account. And then you would just click create new rule. And the first one here we'll look at is I'm setting up a feature code, right, *71. And when I do so, this is the phone number that's going to display on my outbound caller ID. So I hit, from my VoIP phone, I hit *71, then area code and phone number that I'm reaching out to. And then my phone number that shows up on the outbound caller ID is this 918 phone number. Right. The other common option is this one up here, where I'm saying whenever I dial a 408 phone number, have this toll-free phone number show up as my outbound caller ID. Right, so no matter what 408 phone number I dial, the phone number that shows up is this 888 number. If this is something you want on your account, you'd want to check with our account services team to see if it's on your plan, and if not, then what to do about changing plans. Fax Manager, oops. This allows you to see the fax activity on your account. You can see anyone's inbound faxes, as well as their outbound. And you can also see the email to fax logs. Again, this is a test account, so there's usually not a lot of fax activity. The other thing is over here on the right under details, there'll be a little eyeball icon here. So you can click on that. That will give you more details about why a fax did not go out, like invalid attachment, that sort of thing. Monitor is a plan-specific feature as well. So again, you'd want to check with our account services team. But basically, you can see the status of your employees, right? So green means they're waiting for a call, right? I can see if anyone's busy, available. The other thing is you can also see any parked calls and the parking spot number they're on. Number Manager, we actually kind of touched on this before, but you can see your numbers and the numbers in use. You have the option to buy, port, etc. Now the Recording Manager, this takes you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. So you can see your account recordings, your call recordings. One thing to keep in mind about call recording is you do have a storage amount. You'd want to check with our account services team to see how much storage you have and what the overage is for that. Reports, this is the advanced reporting. This is also this is a plan-specific feature. So you'd want to talk to account services. This allows you to create your own reports. So you can take the call log data and get more information out of it. Like you can see like who's getting calls or who's logging in and out, that sort of thing. Voicemail takes you to the Voicemail Manager. So you can get to any voicemail box on the account. And you can see their messages, right, the date and the time, phone number they came in from, the phone number they dialed, duration. You can listen to the file, you can download it. If you put a check mark in front of it, you can, for instance, move it to a different voicemail box. Right, you can mark it as different status. This allows you to select the kinds. Like if you have a lot of voicemails, you can say, I just want to look at the new ones or the listened ones, etc. Webhooks. This allows you to use APIs to link Dash to other software, like Zapier, or we use Zapier quite a bit. If you're interested in webhooks, you're going to want to talk to our sales team. They have additional information. And you can also look at developer.virtualpbx.com, and you'll see samples of what we have done with webhooks and Zapier to integrate Dash with other software. And then we've got the user portal. The user portal, every user has their own user portal. You can't get to, as an admin, you can't get to another person's user portal, but you can get to everything else. So, and that would show up, so you don't really need to. But as a user portal, so your staff members, they can view their voicemails if they don't have delete after notification enabled. Right, so they can see the date, the time, the phone number, they can listen to it, they can download it, they can mark as new, I can mark as listened. So now you can say, oh, this is, right, so I changed the status. I can see my call history. I can see any faxes, although I don't have a fax, or the fax box on this is not working. The contact list shows your Dash account contact list, right? So other staff members and their user or their extension numbers, ring groups, etc. This is not something as a user I can add to, right? So like your salespeople would not be able to add their client list here. This is just within your Dash account. Conference tab. Over here on the right, you can change your moderator pin and your participant pin numbers. You also have the option to have people joined as muted or deafened, as well as play entry and exit tones. Over here, you can invite other Dash users into your conference. You can lock a conference. You can mute everybody. You can unmute everybody. You can end the conference. When you're actually in a conference, you can mute a specific participant or unmute them or kick them from the conference as well. And then under settings and devices, this is where your users can enable their own call forwarding. Just make sure they have the +1 and then area code and phone number. And they can also see the status of their devices. All right, and that's everything. I'm going to head back to the dashboard here and hang out for a minute or two in case anyone has any questions. And then we'll go from there. any questions come through. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Again, thank you for your time today. We'll be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific.